Let's get back to our original problem where we were asked to find a population of a particular city given a bunch of cities and their respective populations and a city name as input from the user. What we said last was if we can change the format of these variables, cities and populations, such a way that, for example, at index 0 of the cities variable we have Istanbul, at index 1 of the cities variable we have Ankara, at index 2 of the cities variable we have Izmir, and likewise for the populations variable, at index 0 we would like to have 15 million, at index 1 we would like to have 5.5 million, so on and so forth. So these were our variables, cities and populations, storing values of type string. And this was the piece of code that we have implemented for checking the validity of the input obtained from the user. And in the last execution of this piece of code, we use A and K as the input, and in the output we saw this is a valid city, although it's not a valid city. But this piece of code would have worked correctly if we had these two variables, cities and populations, in the type of a list. For example, if we had cities this way, at index 0 we have Istanbul, at index 1 we have Ankara, at index 2 we have Izmir, and at index 3 we have Bursa. And likewise for the populations variable, if we had this list of integers, then this piece of code would have worked correctly for the input being A and K, because we don't have A and K as an item within this list. So the first question that pops into my mind is that can we change the type of this cities variable from being string to being a list so that we would have something like this? And for this purpose we can try applying typecasting. So let's say that we have the cities variable that stores a sequence of characters, which means that it stores a string, and then we will apply typecasting by calling the function list with the parameter being cities, and this will return us the value that we have in the cities variable in the form of a list. So we have a list, but the thing is that in this list we don't have the names of these cities, but rather we have the characters that we have in the cities variable. So at index 0 we have the capital I, at index 1 we have the lowercase s, at index 2 we have the lowercase t, so on and so forth. So this is not what we are looking for actually. What we would like to have is this one. And luckily we have a method that we can use on strings that will change this value into this one. And the name of this method is split. So let's say that we have these two variables of type string, and then I would like to call the method called split on the variable or the object with name cities, and this method requires a parameter. So this parameter will be the delimiter, from which character we would like to split the value that we have in the cities variable. So we know that the format of the value that we have in the cities variable is such that we have the names of the cities separated by a comma. So if we split this value from commas, then we will get a list of the cities that we have in the variable cities. And this is actually what we were looking for. And we can do the same for the populations variable as well, since it has the very same format. Now the thing is that the split method doesn't actually modify the object itself or the value of the object itself, but rather it returns some value, a list value actually. So if we would like to modify our original variable, then it means that we need to use an assignment statement. So let's copy this part again. These are our variables, cities and populations of type string. And now I can modify the value that I have in the cities variable by having an assignment operation on this variable. And to the right hand side of this assignment operator, I will have the split method call. And I will do the same for the populations variable as well. Now, for example, if we print the values of cities and populations, then we will see two lists. The first one has the names of the cities as its items, and the second one has the population values as its items. And there is a correlation between the values that we have as the items of these two lists. So the population of Istanbul is 15 million, the population of Ankara is 5.5 million, the population of Izmir is 4.3 million, so on and so forth. Now that we can modify the variables of cities and populations in a way that we would like to have, we can just copy this piece of code that we had written previously down here and comment these two print statements out and see what happens if we enter A and K as the input. We see this is not a valid city as we would be expecting. So with this piece of code, we can check the validity of the input obtained from the user, and now what we would like to do is to find the respective population of the given city name. So instead of printing, we would like to find the position of the given city name in our cities list, and then using that position value, we will be getting a value from the populations variable. So from the cities variable, I would like to find the index of this city. And since I'll be using this information later, I need to assign it to a variable. Let's say I will have this variable with name position that will store the index of the given city that we have in the cities variable. At this point, we know that calling the index method on cities with the parameter being city is safe, because we know that we have that city in our cities variable from this if check. Now, once we find the position of the city in the cities variable, we need to find the value that sits in this position of the populations variable. And the last thing we need to do is to print this value. So let's try what we will see if we enter, for example, Izmir. We see 4.3 million, which is correct. Let's try for Bursa, for example, and this is also correct. Okay, I would like to show you one more thing. Instead of having these two lines of code, we could have written it in a single print statement. So, for example, we could have said that I would like to print a value from the populations variable, and that value sits in this index. So this line of code will work from inner to outer. It will first call the index method on the cities variable with the parameter being city. So this will return us the index of city in the cities variable. And that particular index will be used to refer to a particular element from the populations variable. And finally, the print statement will be displaying us the respective population value for the given city. So if we try it with Istanbul, you will see that this print statement and this print statement will result in the same value to be displayed. So we can comment this part out as well and see a single output.